Welcome back to the Africa Politics podcast. That's refreshing. Now let's dive into today's topic. Hello Africa, my name is Grace Ndlovukazi and this is Africa Politics. I'm excited to bring you real issues and African perspectives on our continent's politics. We'll explore elections, policies, and the voices shaping our future. Thank you for joining me. Let's get started. When people are burned alive on camera, beaten in front of police, shot in broad daylight, and no one is arrested, tried, or sentenced, it isn't just a failure of law. It's a revelation of what power, authority, and human life mean inside that political community. For Africa's repeated xenophobic attacks, 2009, 2015, 2019, and now again in 2026, against Zimbabweans, Somalis, and other African migrants are not isolated eruptions, they are patterns, and patterns demand explanation. This is where Hannah Arendt and others become brutally relevant. These are not random outbreaks, but symptoms of deeper societal failures. To understand this better, let's watch the next clip.
Before spreading across the country, foreigners, particularly from Zimbabwe and Mozambique, were targeted and blamed for crime and economic woes.
I don't want these people here. I want them to go back to their home because they've got no job because of them.
62 people were killed, including a number of migrants stabbed, hacked, or brutally burned alive. Tens of thousands of foreigners fled their homes, crowding into community centers and makeshift camps. In 2015, there was another upsurge in xenophobic attacks that killed at least 8 people. Then again in 2019 and 2022. Now today, migrants are once again being targeted and lining up by the thousands to leave out of fear for their lives.
Anger towards foreigners has been brewing for months. These protesters claim they are taking up jobs and committing crimes. Tens of thousands of migrants have already left. The campaign has been led by this man, Achille Mbembe. Dressed in traditional Zulu clothes, he's quickly gained followers and influence, and even met with South Africa's president last night.
Angithengeki angisoze ngathengwa ngiyoze ngihambe la emhlabeni ngoba kwandabandaba yimina engithethe idlozi ngeke ngithethe idlozi kwandabandaba ngazi kahle ukuthi sengidayise ngomzabalazo.
The anger is not confined to Durban. In Johannesburg, protesters threw stones and set fire to cars. The fear now, with the protesters' deadline reached, is that people from countries like Nigeria, Malawi, and Congo could become targets for even greater violence. This movement may be born of economic frustration, but it's shown an ugly side of South African society and created a climate of fear. Now comes the moment that will determine whether the warnings become reality.
Arendt's phrase, "the banality of evil," was never about excusing evil. It was about showing how ordinary people become participants in systems of cruelty, without grand ideology or monstrous personality. This happens through the gradual normalization of harmful routines, bureaucratic attachment, and the simple failure to question one's role. In the South African context, when police stand by while people are flogged and punched, a boy is shot and the footage circulates globally. Migrants are burned alive and no one is prosecuted. These incidents exposes a deep failure of justice and accountability. Let's watch the next clip. Arendt would say, "This is banality of evil in real time, not spectacular, but administratively tolerated. The horror is not only in the acts, but in how ordinary they become to those with the power to stop them." Let's take a look at the next clip.
South Africans are not xenophobic. South Africans are Africans. They want to live with other Africans peacefully, and our people are calling on us as leaders to resolve the many challenges that are brought to bear by the challenge of migration.
There is no xenophobia in South Africa. It's just a group of charlatans, extortionists, disruptors, corrupt individuals who want to extort the foreign nationals.
But is that not xenophobia targeting African foreign nationals?
That's why it's not xenophobia. It's gangsterism.
The matter is that there are Nigerian criminals who are involved in drug dealing. And that's true. And there are Nigerian criminals who are involved in prostitution. And that's true. And you'll find, like in this incident now, in this area of Johannesburg, Rosettenville, where there have been attacks on people, it's been against criminals, not Nigerians. There's no South African who goes around chasing Nigerians because they're Nigerian. It doesn't exist.
The denials and justifications I've seen Your Excellency give, I think should not be accepted. Xenophobia, Afrophobia, like racism should be condemned and should be condemned strongly. Like apartheid, there should be no justification, Your Excellency. Crime, Your Excellency, is crime. As soon as you give it labels, Nigerians or whatever, you forget that the drugs probably are imported by that Jew or by that Greek.
Ambassador?
And you'll attack the peddler. Fight crime. Don't fight nationality.
President Jacob Zuma too denies that South Africans are xenophobic. However, it is a fact that only black foreign nationals are attacked during these clashes. Whether it's termed xenophobia or Afrophobia, it's evident South Africa is facing a problem.
Arendt distinguishes authority from mere power. Authority is legitimate, grounded in shared values and a sense of justice. Power without authority is just force. In South Africa, the Constitution promises dignity, equality, and rights. Yet in practice, authority collapses when the victims are poor, foreign, or politically expendable. This gap between constitutional ideals and lived reality creates a hollow center. Leaders speak the language of rights and Pan-Africanism, but the system tolerates or ignores violence against Africans from elsewhere. That contradiction is not just hypocrisy, it's a structural betrayal. If you're joining the conversation now, this is Africa Politics, hosted by Grace Ndlovukazi. Philosophers of power and wealth, Frantz Fanon, Arendt, and Mbembe would all recognize a familiar pattern: economic inequality and unemployment, failed delivery of services. These are the patterns we must address. Let's watch the next clip.
Also featured during the sitting, Ramaphosa says implicated parties are already facing the music.
It is clear that there is criminal infiltration and corruption within law enforcement, intelligence, and other organs of state. However, through the measures that we are undertaking, particularly the work of the Commission, as well as working within the law and according to the process, due process rather, we are rooting out these elements and restoring the credibility as well as the integrity of our law enforcement and security apparatus.
Government says all sectors of society have a role to play in ensuring peace and calm while the illegal immigration issue is being addressed. Kevin Brand, Parliament.
Corruption and elite capture. A sense of abandonment among the poor. When people feel dispossessed, they often turn their anger not against the powerful but against those closest and weakest: migrants, outsiders, others. Leaders who fail to transform the economic structure, use nationalist or populist rhetoric, do not clearly condemn or prosecute xenophobic violence, are not neutral. Their silence, vagueness, or selective outrage becomes part of the machinery that allows violence to repeat. South Africa is not a totalitarian regime, but Arendt's analysis of how ordinary people become actors in oppressive systems still applies. Dehumanization of migrants: they are taking our jobs, they don't belong here. Let's watch the next clip.
Xenophobic
Right now, we've got a crisis. We've got millions of people that we don't know who they are, their background. Some of them are mercenaries from other countries. Some of them are running away from persecution for serious crimes. But our government doesn't seem to think that is important enough. They think that dealing with xenophobia is more important than dealing with this issue of our lives being in danger. And this perceived xenophobia is only in their heads, because now they're claiming that there's 2 people who have died from xenophobia, which we all know is not even true.
Guys, from now on, South Africa yonke, for as long bengakahambi, every Thursday siyamasha.
Anti-immigrant protesters went door to door in Johannesburg's Alexandra township on Thursday, breaking into homes where they believed undocumented immigrants were hiding. They escorted the people through the streets and into police vans where they were taken away. This Zimbabwean man, apprehended by the marchers, told Reuters he was in the country legally. The surge in anti-immigrant sentiment culminated in nationwide protests on June 30th, an informal deadline set for undocumented immigrants to leave. People are unemployed in the country, and many South Africans blame immigrants for problems such as crime and unemployment. Vigilantes have recently attacked foreign nationals and looted foreign-owned shops on numerous occasions in recent months. South Africa's immigrant population stands at about 3 million people, or roughly 4% of SA, a relatively low share by global standards.
Administrative indifference, cases not investigated, dockets lost, no prosecutions, fragmented responsibility, everyone is responsible, so no one is accountable. This is not totalitarianism, but it is a moral infrastructure that allows repeated violence without consequence. When leaders do not insist on justice for burned, beaten and shot migrants, do not publicly and consistently condemn xenophobic violence, and do not ensure prosecutions and sentences, we are all diminished. Let's take a look at the next clip.
Mahambe!
Carrying a traditional fighting stick, using Zulu symbolism to evoke national.
Do not protect the vulnerable in practice then, in Arendt's sense, they reflect a society that has learned to live with certain kinds of evil. Not because South Africans are evil, that's too easy and false. Institutions are weak or selectively applied. Economic pain is redirected into xenophobia. Political leadership does not make protection of all Africans non-negotiable. Leadership here is a mirror of tolerated injustice. The moral question you're really asking. You're not just asking about leaders. What does it mean about us? When we can watch people burned alive, beaten, shot, and nothing happens. Arendt's answer would be harsh. Evil becomes banal when we stop being shocked. Systems become implicit when they stop acting. Leadership becomes a reflection of what a society is willing to live with. The challenge, then, is not only to change leaders, but to refuse the normalization of xenophobic violence. We must demand prosecutions and sentences for these crimes. We need institutional reform now. African lives, regardless of passport, are non-negotiable. This is our call to action. Thank you for listening. This is Grace Ndlovukazi, and you've been tuned into Africa Politics. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share. Stay informed, stay critical, and I'll catch you in the next episode.